All right. Hey everyone, this is the sig-auth meeting for January 15th, 2025. So our first meeting of the year. I think we have a pretty full agenda, so I think we can get started. I don't act Ian? Ian?
Yeah,
Sorry,
Ian.
sorry,
Howdy.
got it wrong. Welcome.
No worries. Yeah, so for folks who don't know me, my name is Ian Numberhall. I'm predominantly active over in OpenSSF, where I do a lot of work with SBOM tooling and whatnot. So this topic is around FIPS compliance. My objective here is more to plot a path forward and to document kind of like what the community recommends. Um, the background here is Eddie Zinski and Porco and I have had some conversations around a need for FIPS compliance in Kubernetes. And I talked with Taylor and Bob Killian at the LF Member Summit, and they recommended that a lot of that, I'll say, decision-making authority should be here in the SIG. And so I think there's a little bit of a discussion here more about like, okay, like I know there's concerns around, I'll say, like sovereign specific requirements coming into Kubernetes in any way. Totally sensitive to that. I get that. Um, but there's also interest because of some changes happening in Golang to maybe feature flag FIPS compliance into Kubernetes. And that was kind of where Porco's head was at. I'm also, sensitive to the idea that like maybe we don't want to do that at all. And maybe we want to have maybe an ecosystem project that would be more FIPS compliance. So for folks who don't know FIPS, type of encryption, I'll say certification, predominantly in the US government. If you happen to work with the US government, any applications that you're running need to be FIPS compliance. And so right now there's a lot of us who work in that space who are basically um, expected or mandated to use, I'll say, flavors of Kubernetes provided by vendors versus a true like open source solution. So that's kind of where the thought process and the background here is. I wanted to really pull this group's opinions and thoughts around ecosystem subproject versus feature flagging it, knowing that sig-auth owns encryption also for Kubernetes.
I'm trying to remember the various places the discussion happened. Was it Slack, or was there a mailing list thread, or was it mostly Slack? Maybe it was.
It's predominantly in this issue.
Okay.
I try to keep it all in one spot.
All right. Cool. Yeah. The three dimensions that I normally see are like actual code changes that are required, and then like testing qualification types of changes, and then possibly like release packaging artifacts changes. Um, Sort of going backwards from like release artifact, it sounds like the um, Go changes that are expected would mean that we wouldn't actually need to package or build separate artifacts. That it could be a runtime thing. Like when you run these, you could run them in a mode that the Go stack would only allow FIPS, which is great. Like that's ideal. Um, Things that require like another release or a special release or special artifacts are pretty painful, and we try really hard not to do those. So if Go structures the changes so that you can just run existing artifacts that open source produces in FIPS only mode, that would be ideal. That sort of crosses off the release aspect. The qualification piece, we're pretty sensitive to cost on. And anytime you get sort of esoteric configurations, like if those start failing tests, getting people to care about that and like block on that is difficult. So where we would probably start is saying if there's people interested in this who want to set up a test run, not using community resources, but just like if you want to run the test, you can run the tests toggling on this mode. If they fail, like that's helpful to know. That's what we've done for other other things like some sort of esoteric platforms, platforms that not all community members have access to. Like someone wants to go run tests in that environment and report back, like if there's issues. Like an issue is always welcome. Like it failed for this reason. Here's the failure. Here's a pull request that fixes that failure in a way that doesn't actually hurt anybody else. Like I think that would probably be a good place to start. That wouldn't put cost on the community, but it would also give a channel for like accepting fixes that don't hurt the rest of the project. And then seeing what the volume there is. If it's a high volume of fixes, then maybe that's a signal that it's actually a cost we wouldn't want to bear anyway. If it's a low volume of fixes, then maybe that's a sustainable approach long term. When it comes down to code changes, I think code changes that are like small and pretty easy to test or demonstrate and don't tangle things up for non-FIPS cases, I don't think we would be opposed to that if they're small and reasonable. When we start talking about like, oh, we need a big change that's hard to reason about, hard to test, and it only is beneficial for FIPS, there might be questions there. But that would be the case for any sort of niche code change that is difficult to test and only benefits a specific use case. So it's a little hard to talk about in the abstract, but that's the path I would give. Avoid release, special release if possible. It sounds like we maybe can do that. Set up, just I would probably run the conformance test or the E2E test suites, turning on FIPS mode for all the components and report back like, what are you seeing? And we can work through individual changes if they're small and reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, that seems perfectly reasonable. Yeah, I mean, I understand the concerns around cost. And I think we're not necessarily looking for FIPS certification, only compliance. So there's also the reduce, like we wouldn't want to burden anyone with a cost around certification. Also. Yeah, I think those are all reasonable things.
Being able to pass through to the underlying Go stuff, and then like if Kubernetes tests pass while running in this mode, like that seems like the most I would expect out of the project.
Rorco was thinking that it might be worthwhile setting up a working group around this. That seems maybe, I don't know. I see value in that if there's enough people interested, but at the same time, that seems also like a lot of overhead for something that may not be needed.
Yeah, if it's mostly a testing thing, I would maybe talk to SIG security. SIG security, so like the split is normally the code is owned by sig-auth or other SIGs that are doing particular things, but SIG security has done testing, auditability, documentation around like how to run under different regimes and crypto recommendations and things like that. Maybe talk to SIG security and see if there's an existing group that this could slot into to avoid the overhead of a new dedicated thing. But I would ask them.
Perfect. Thank you. This gives me what I was looking for. I know I got a lot more to talk about on the agenda, so I'll keep it quick. Thank you.
Cool. Does anybody else have any quick comments? Okay. Thank you, Jordan. All right. So then we have a bunch of caps to talk about. Also, I guess I don't see Jordan, I don't see Vignac on the call, so I guess maybe, I guess you could maybe just tell him that what you wrote. I don't know if there was really much else here. We just didn't discuss it last time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. That's probably not big enough. Okay, I think we finished this, right, Jordan? I think we basically merged this one, like one.
Yes.
So yay. So I don't think there's really anything left to do there. I don't know, actually, did the docs merge? I know we merged like the cap update and the code update, but I don't remember if the docs went through.
They're not merged yet, but the PR is open and ready.
Okay. So maybe we don't need to worry about it. Anish, structure.then config. What are we doing?
So the KEP update PR is merged to do some work in this release. So it's mostly around metrics, and then we will also have some discussions on how we want to support distributed claims and then the egress network selection.
Okay. But I think we will keep this beta, right? And so we'll make some progress sort of in place, but it'll stay beta.
Yeah, and then we're trying to get more feedback, but just FYI, I think there are like few projects that adopted it. But there's Gardner, and then we saw a Spiffy implementation with structured authn, and then also CubeSpray has a PR out there. So we are also in the process of updating the KEP with those details.
For tracking, I'm trying to remember, do we opt in the enhancements issues even if we're staying in the same stage if we're doing work?
Yeah.
I think we, okay.
If you're gonna touch the code, you need to
Okay.
bump. So yes. So that's there. And remind me, Anish, did I already like LGTM a PR to put it in the release? I think, did you say that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is already marked as. Did I lead opt it in? I don't think I've done the lead opting in because I think that got removed. I'll follow up and take care of that. Let's see. Standa and to here. Are we gonna finish this? We're gonna make it cluster trust bundle. Yeah. I think we were almost done, right? It was really close to getting to beta.
Yeah. There are some changes in like SE tests in this release, but I already made some of that, so hopefully.
But I think what I understood was we're gonna work on this. Jordan, do you have cycles to review? I think this was like one of the last remaining PRs. I think there was some sort of.
Yeah, I have cycles to review. Can we set up dedicated like slots for some of these that bled over from last release? If we set up like a 30-minute or 1 hour review slot, like this week, next week, that would help me and would help us get these moving again.
Okay, I like that. That's fine. We should do that. All right, cool. Do we have any plans for this in the release? Because I know we just bumped it to beta, and I think we bumped it without any changes at all, right? We just said it's beta.
Yes.
Yeah, but say that again, David.
I would like to keep it beta for at least one more release.
That's fine.
Yeah. I know that there was at least some vague interest in AKS to use this, so I might be able to find somebody to give feedback. I mean, pretty. But
yeah, I don't have any particular need to move it past beta. I'm happy to get feedback on the beta state.
Either David, Jordan, or otherwise, is anyone planning on using this feature anytime soon in a way that they could provide just feedback to make sure it worked for them?
Not outside of essentially the same thing the node authorizer does, whereas a hard-coded authorizer or authorize this.
Okay, so not like a webhook, like sort of the normal.
Like that.
Okay. Yeah, I do think I would really like someone to just sort of do it the normal way, at least once in a real environment, just to make sure. Though I mean, we have integration tests that show that it works. So I mean,
the node authorizer does use it. It just doesn't provide like a user-facing API that.
Yeah, I mean, like I think the way you're going to use it and the way the node authorizer uses it, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's very tightly controlled, and like, you know, it's not like Kubernetes random open source code plus someone else's random webhook that they made, and does it all interface correctly.
Okay.
But I think what we're saying though is that we would not even put this in the milestone, right, Jordan? Because we just don't plan on.
Yeah, I just commented on the KEP issue. I don't think we're gonna touch it.
Excellent. Okay. So that's good. None is correct. Excellent. All right. Standa, we have the insured image pools KEP. I think you have been asking sig-auth people to come review it.
Yes. So far, I haven't seen much of it from the signal folk. I think there's a game might have been looking the get at least. I don't know. I thought that was them tomorrow again.
Jordan, do you think we should set up dedicated meetings for this one as well? I remember this change was just like rough. Like it was big.
Yeah, a dedicated review slot for that would be helpful.
All right, let's keep going. So, any plans for this one, Jordan? I think we just got it to beta in 132, right?
Correct.
But I think you guys are planning on using it, right? In GK?
Yeah, we are. We are not using it yet. So my focus is going to be on adopting it and using it. So I would probably leave it as beta until we can give feedback on that use.
Yeah. So are you okay saying that probably no plan changes in this release?
Yep.
Okay. Nice. All right. So no. Wow. Why is this old? What in the world is happening? Man, no idea. Sorry. All right. So no changes. By the way, David, do you have any plans in OpenShift to use this, or
The locking for anonymous auth?
yes?
Nothing immediate. It's a potential maybe.
Okay.
Potential maybe. That's even more tenuous than a definite maybe.
It is. Like it's on a list and you say like, well,
maybe.
like,
Okay.
there's other ways to achieve similar goals. So.
Okay. Cool. It's fine. And all right, Nish, I think this is you.
Yeah. So the PR, we have the implementation PR, it was closed, but we have it scheduled for API review tomorrow with Jordan. And then most of the Node folks had said the implementation was okay. So we can try and get it merged early in the release. But the KEP update PR for the current milestone is also merged. Mo ULGTM did.
Okay.
And the second part of it was basically the future work around the audience restriction that we did. So that is also one thing that we're going to discuss tomorrow.
Okay. So maybe after review tomorrow, Jordan, we can decide the level of follow-up reviews we need, if it needs another dedicated meeting or if async is okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, excellent. External signing. What is the plan?
We have some changes or additions to make, but I think I would probably keep it in alpha. Like after integrating it, we found some things we want to tweak, but I don't think I would look to graduate it to beta this release.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll comment that we'll opt it in, but staying in alpha.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I vaguely recall talking about having a reference implementation. I don't know if it just got like lost in some comment thread somewhere because I couldn't find it in the KEP.
I mean, we had the mock implementation for integration testing. I don't remember I don't remember the discussion about like a reference implementation or how useful that would be for extending.
The way I framed it was the same thing we kind of did with CAMS, right? Is that you have a full E where you have a completely real environment where you just make sure it works. So like I was thinking, yeah, we'd have some kind of reference one, probably with PKCS11 in the same way we did with CAMS, and then just have it
Do
where
we
you
feel like that gave us value compared to like a real, like really setting up an API server, really talking across a socket, but to like an in-process mock one? Do we feel like we got value out of the real reference one?
So it did give me something to point people at, so that was helpful. And then the other thing it did catch is I think we were trying to make some kind of gnarly changes to like improve performance, and that was the only test that blew up when we tried and messed up. Like none of the unit tests and stuff.
Oh no, yeah, that that was just how the test was written. That didn't have anything to do with the fact that it was a
No,
KMS.
not the one that you're thinking of. That one, that was not that one. That was just random accident. I mean, like a different thing. Like at the point, Nick was trying to make some changes to how we were managing CAMS internally, trying to like be really fancy with our memory usage. And like none of the unit tests anywhere failed ever, but then like it blew up catastrophically on the actual EDE.
Okay,
But
I'm
is
kind of on the fence about like the value
PKCS11
of
needed for that? Like,
I-
seems like we could just hold the key in memory, and that would be a lot easier to operate in a test.
yeah, the specifics of the reference implementation. I just don't know that I feel like it's that valuable. We can talk about it. I'm not opposed to it, I guess, but
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have like a complete real thing that you can point someone at, right? Like there's no faking, there's nothing you can miss, right? But also on the PKS11 thing, right? Like you can just copy paste what we did for KMS, right? It's not like net new. Like it's already done.
yeah, we can have that as a thing to talk about. I don't feel strongly either way, but I also probably wouldn't care to fund the work to do it. So
For me, that's like beta requirement. You did the thing end to end, and it still worked. Like I don't know. I don't think that's like a high bar. Prove the thing works all the way. So, but
I mean,
fine.
in E2E test, sure, but I don't think we should like try to give that E2E implementation of the signer backend the ability to talk to, like, it should be as dumb as possible. Like we just give it the key on a command line flag or something like that. Not
I mean, so the way we did the PKSCS11 thing is right, is we used real PKSCS11 but configured with soft HSM, right? So
but why? What?
just that way we
Why?
knew it. Well, like it has some minor overhead, right? And it was just to prove out that like it doesn't
At a
matter.
time.sleep or something like PKCS. I don't know. I've never had a good experience with PKCS11, so I'd be hesitant to write a E2E test that relies on anything with it.
It doesn't fail. It's never failed for something we broke. It has been broken by other people, annoyingly. But aside, let's keep going. All right. Pod certs. I think this is like the biggest PR slash
Yeah,
thing in the
I am going to work on this. I would very much like if we could find a way to break this thing into some pieces. What I was thinking is maybe, so I think right now the PR covers like the projected volume and the default signers and the Cube API server support for new client certificates. Maybe I can just do the projected volume first, and if we land that, we can talk about whether or not that it gets exposed as alpha. But at least if I'm much less likely to miss another release with nothing merged in tree, because rebasing this thing is like bad.
I agree with you said with you. I'm with you to here. I don't know if Jordan is with you.
I'm sorry, I was commenting on the external signer issue.
So the question is, what do you think about, so we have this Mondo PR that covers the API type, the projected volume implementation, the default built-in signers, and the ability for Cube API Server to accept client certificates from the new built-in signer. What if the first PR just covers the API type and the projected volume type?
When you say API type, Terry, did you actually finish the REST storage so it had all the restrictions in place? Like all
I don't remember, but they're like, and on the branch right now, you can create a pod certificate request type, and it has some validation. I need to go back and refresh my memory on what is and isn't there. But like
the main reason we look for the end-to-end implementation is to make sure that the content of the API like actually matches, like we have what we need to for all the actors that are interacting with it. And so if you've gotten to the point where you've gotten it mapped down into pods and you have it getting signed and you have it getting accepted and used for authentication, like that's the end-to-end usage. Until we get to that point, like in the past, we've merged API types and then later discovered when we went to go use them, like, oh crap,
I've gotten there, like
Okay.
on private, like it works with not total validation, but it's going to be a pain in that whatever to to get this huge thing merged. So if we could split it up for review.
Also, node authorizer changes, right? So like,
yeah, node authorizer changes have to go in no matter what. Those are part of like using the projected volume securely, I think
demonstrating that we actually used it all the way through, that's mostly what we're looking for to have confidence in the API types before we merge them. So that's why we ask for like where you're going to use this. Have we implemented that? Do we know this actually has the fields we need? And we're not going to hit surprises that we realize, oh, we should have shaped the API differently when we get to implementing that point. So if you have that, you can point to, like, I used it end to end, and it had the information we needed, and here's what the authorizer looks like or the authenticator looks like at the end. I think that's good evidence. If you then want to sort of break out that first chunk and say, like, here's the API types and the validation, I'm okay with merging them in pieces as long as we can point at the end-to-end use, even if you're not keeping the big mega end-to-end use PR like rebased across like 18 different SIG components. Does that make sense? Like even if Mondo one is stale from like 2 months ago, we can point to like, here's how it's going to be used. I did implement it. It needs to be rebased and updated and whatever. David, does that roughly match how you would think about it?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
But I don't think I signed up for this one, did
I? Did you type this, David? I don't remember typing this.
Crap, I did. Okay, then yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Has to be the worst.
Yeah, I was like, I did not type these words. So at some point, somebody typed them into the doc. Okay. So Jordan and David, question on that, right? So like if we have big Mondo PR that gives us the rough picture and we feel comfortable that it looks realistic, can we then start splitting it up into smaller PRs that we then merge with the potential slipping and not having everything in one release?
So once we're confident that it hangs together and that the API is the right shape, then API and validation can go in together. They can't go in separately. You have to have both.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest split. The splits beyond that, we have to look at and decide maybe not.
Okay, like I think the split I would be interested in is like, can you, like, if you can have API and validation, can you then have like afterwards a separate PR to do like node authorizer plus projected volume, and then another separate PR to add like the new signer with whatever?
I don't want to pre-answer that. I want a definite maybe. It's not a potential maybe. It's a definite maybe.
All right, to hear. What I'm hearing is it's gonna suck to review this. What I'm hearing.
If we can show the end-to-end use, then I'm fine pulling out the API and validation piece, which I think is the most painful piece to keep like rebased because it touches generation. After that, I think the other pieces are pretty isolated or targeted or touch rarely touched things, so you probably wouldn't hit a ton of churn.
Actually, the hardest part for me is the pod projected volume source, because that is in core v1 pod. But I think I'm fine to split. Yeah, I'm fine to. So let me review what I have in the Monopy right now. I think what I have works end to end, but is missing maybe the node authorization piece or something like that. And I can knock that in real quick and then test it in, kind, and then break out the API type and validation as like a first step. I think I would be confident, like if we can take that approach, I'd be confident in getting through the API type and validation and the projected volume support, at which point it becomes a usable system in 133.
Okay. So how do we want to structure like review and stuff for this? Because I don't see this landing without dedicated time just because it's so big.
Yeah, I can see that. Probably next week. Time to set up some time.
Okay.
Yeah. If you could give it time, David, that would be helpful. I'm giving the cluster trust bundle and the image pull stuff.
Yep. Thursday morning, just the personal level.
David, you're really quiet. What did you say?
I said Thursday morning, and now I'm looking at it. I'm saying, how about Friday morning? Next week.
Okay, Friday morning. Excellent.
That's a definite thing. So there you
go. Excellent. All right. Gotta keep going. Anything else on this, y'all? Or can we jump to fine grained tublet? Jordan, I did not really keep up with this cap. Did you?
I glanced at it. Tim Allclear did a lot of the reviews. I sanity checked the auth-z calls and construction, but most of the work was negotiating the splits, like the mappings on the node side. So the mechanics were pretty straightforward from an auth-z side. I don't know what his plans are.
Did code merge last release, or was it just a cap?
Code merged.
Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, so Vignac isn't here, and neither is Tim. Jordan, could you maybe follow up with Vignac and ask him what he plans to do in 33?
Yeah, I'll ask.
Okay. Yeah, so. Okay, and then David, can you remind me how far we got with this in 132?
It nearly got reverted. It did stay in. I think in 133, it would be fair to require a reinspection to be sure that we got all the test coverage that's required, and leave it in alpha. If we have all the test coverage, it'll promote it to beta next release.
Sorry, if you have all the test coverage, then what?
We can consider promoting next release.
Okay.
I'd want it to be. We should double check that it's fully ready.
Okay. Can you remind me, was this implemented in a way that now it's like part of like the REST layer and not like a mission?
It is not part of the mission.
Okay. And we made it so that if you did one of these deletes, that clients with watches did not have like indefinite stale items, right? Like we fixed that, right?
Correct. And there is a test to be sure that works.
Okay. All right. I think I remember those as being like really like concerning.
Yeah, they snuck past an initial review, but we caught it during the API check.
Okay. Was that why it was almost reverted, or was it?
No, it was almost reverted because there was an inverted Boolean check which caused it to fail when enabled in alpha and a normal request was made. So it was it shows a lack of test coverage which needs to be filled.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Yeah, like, I don't know if it needs to be as extensive as y'all did for like dry run. Like, I know you were very particular by like reusing like the etcd storage path data to do like a one of everything test with dry run to like really make sure. I don't know if we have to go that far with this one, but yeah.
I think it looks different, right? We did use something like the etcd data to drive the work for CBOR, which also landed last release. But this one looks different when you go to work with it.
Okay. But it's gonna stay alpha, and then so are you still gonna be reviewing it with whoever's working on it? It's
Okay.
like forgetting this person's name. What is it?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Cool. That's good. All right, moving along then, Rita. I think we're discussing this tomorrow in API review with Jordan.
Yeah, and I guess there's a cap, and we need basically volunteers to review and make sure it's implementable so we can promote it to alpha in 133.
Okay. And is this a net new cap or is this an addition to the existing?
Net new.
Okay.
It's
Sort
a
of got
net new
split
one
out.
that came from the DR. The main one is the DRA feature one, but it's a fork because this one touches like specific like auth stuff.
Okay. Jordan, you were saying?
Yeah, I was just saying what Rita said.
Oh, okay. Okay. And okay, so we're gonna discuss the API tomorrow and like make sure we're kind of happy with that. What other stuff is needed from sig-auth? Like if we're
Implementation wise, I'm doing the implementation and review. I need volunteers for review from CAP to PRs, I guess.
okay. Even though it's a sig node cap, am I understanding correctly that this is actually API server only? It's not actually touching node kubelet at all.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, there is a controller manager and scheduler, I think. Code.
Oh, okay. I haven't read the cap. So I'm happy to review it. But
Okay.
I admit I don't have enough understanding of DRA to necessarily give it most correct.
Well, considering DRA is touching more and more like auth stuff, this is probably a good one to get started with, if not already.
Okay.
With only hours of review, you could be as much of a DRA expert as anyone else in the project.
There you go.
Except Patrick and Kevin and Tim and John.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest of us
are somewhere.
The rest of us are like 30 minutes to an hour into trying to understand all this.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Awesome. All right. Cool. Well, I guess if anyone else cares, then.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't remember what this one was. This was something small, but I can't remember. Jordan, do you remember? Mm, this was changed to probes with different semantics and how it interacted with PSA.
I think it was a random thing that field on a pod that you could use to make the kubelet do host level things, and someone was looking to restrict use of that field for the baseline and restricted pod security admission, which like directionally makes sense to me. Like the point of those is to keep you from doing host level things.
Yeah.
But this, so yeah, they were saying, could we hook into pod security admission to restrict this field?
Okay, but it would be restricting it in a way, kind of like how, like, we don't let you do privileged pods, right? It's like, it's not saying that you can't set the field at all. It's some nuance of how you can set the field.
I think so. Well, I'm actually not sure if there's anything you could set that field to except maybe like 127.0.1 or localhost that would be sensible. Like, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just not really, I'm not super familiar with this specific part of the pod spec, I guess. So, okay. Do you know who are these people? Oh, it's a red hat.
Network folks.
Okay. David, do you happen to know if they're going to work on this? I think they're both red hatters.
I do not. You are correct that they are.
Would you mind reaching out to them and asking them if they were planning?
I will. I do not have a specific memory of this.
Okay, so they. But overall, the way you described it, Jordan, just sounds like a natural continuation of how PSA was designed to evolve.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I don't remember like anything about
So this one already has a cap, and it was mentioned as part of like some CVE actually, as a good long-term fix. So I want to make sure this is tracked, even if we can't get it across the finishing line for 133, but at least tracked.
I don't see Micah on the call. I think that one was being driven by someone from AWS, right?
It was.
Oh,
Directionally, I like it. I would love to see the author or someone else Micah identifies staff it. That would be excellent. I could give it review time as well.
Okay. So all right, so reviewers, maybe Jordan. So but we need to reach out to Micah. I can do that. I can reach out to Mike and be like, hey, what's your plan? Okay, still got like 10 minutes. Okay. Jordan, what is planned for this?
I need to ask Vinigo or Vinayak what
Okay.
time.
Do you, with all the stuff we've talked about so far, do you realistically think, even if he had time, if there any of the rest of us would?
I think it depends on what we do with it. I think there are minimal implementations that would not be a big deal to review. But if the design goes in a more complicated direction, then no, I don't think there would be time in 133.
Okay. think converting to. Okay. So David, I put this in here because I know you and I had discussed this, but I don't see us having time with all the other stuff to work on something this big.
I also don't know of someone who's volunteered to look into it and do it.
Say that one more time.
I don't know of someone who's volunteered to actually look into it and create a design for it.
Right, yeah. Okay. So I think I'm fine just leaving that alone. Like I think these are all kind of related, right? They're all about enhancements to RBAC, or not RBAC, but authorization. And I think we wanted to do this one ideally first-ish because it would change SAR one more time. And it would be a shame to not have RBAC handle it. Do you know in API machinery if you have any plans on this one?
I think it would be a separate cap. I believe it would be for API machinery. I have debated it and not made a firm decision. I'm waiting to see how bad it looks for this FIFO problem that I'm fixing before deciding whether I'm going to volunteer to do that.
Okay. So I think it might be just fine to leave it. And I don't even know if we need to talk about this stuff because it's like assumes pot certs actually works. So let's maybe figure that out first. And then Jordan, I don't think we have any plans for reference grant right now. I don't think he's pushing it right now. And I think everything else, there's no one actually trying to push it. So I think that covers it.
And just in terms of timing, like 2-ish weeks to get designs basically finalized. And then like 4 to 6 weeks of implementation time, and then we're done. So like,
yeah, so let's go look at that PR real quick.
We had all of December, right? I mean, I know you
I
foolishly.
mean, all of December, man. Like, what are you talking about? That is not the month I like to do a bunch of work. I want to be off. I'm tired.
I foolishly spent it actually releasing 132, but that was just me.
Mhm. All right. So, but if we look at the timeline for 133, when is nominally kept freeze right now? The Friday, February 13th.
Yeah.
So less, 4 weeks. So kept
But
freeze.
but really 3 weeks to get the designs done.
Yeah, because we have to have PRR the week before, and yeah.
Yep.
So I'm happy with just trying to make progress on all the stuff from last.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of things where the designs are pretty baked, and we should just
go do them.
Yeah.
Yep, I like this plan. And then code freeze is March 6th. Wow, that is like so short. How many weeks? Is that like 3 weeks to actual?
It's a balloon. You push enhancements freeze later to accommodate late tiny designs, and then you only have like small number of weeks between enhancements freeze and code freeze. I don't know. Like no matter where you put those deadlines, somebody's unhappy.
Yeah, but there's only like 3-ish weeks to, like, if you were busy with kept freeze, then you have like no time to actually implement anything.
Yep.
Okay, well, all right. So we have 5 minutes left, y'all. Anything else, or we're good to go? Wonder what we've signed up for in this doc. Okay, cool. Let's get the 5 minutes back then. See y'all in 2 weeks.
Let's not forget to set up those dedicated review spots on the
Yeah.
implementations that are ready. That'd be great. Thanks.
Sounds good.